Amo Myoho Renge Kyo. How's everyone doing? I hope you're in good health and secure. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. Yeah. And thank you for helping to promote or grow this Sangha. As I always say, like and subscribe, not for the benefit of me or the growth of whatever YouTube is following, but simply to make this Sangha more rise in the standings of the searches, right? So it helps grow the Sangha. It's a Bodhisattva act. So please continue to do that. Those who've recently done it and subscribed, thank you. Welcome. Don't forget the video on the homepage of this channel that instructs on how to maximize your use of all the resources, websites, bookstore, all of that. Okay, I'm a little bit, my brain still hasn't unglued from Gongyo. There's something about those 5 meditations in the morning. Different ones hit me stronger on particular days than others. It's just amazing, this practice. All right, we are still in this collection of Gosho, Nichiren's writings, pertaining, and our discussions pertaining to Nichiren's view of karma, either singled out or speaking in general about karma. It's a question that comes up all the time, and so I thought it was high time I put together a collection specific to it in a playlist on this channel, as well as I have to check on the podcast channel if I have a karma playlist. That would be handy, wouldn't it? Okay, so we're starting a new letter today, lessening one's karmic repercussions, right? Everything has consequences, and certainly energy moving through time, space, right, with momentum, constantly amalgamating, instantiating from potential. What is potential? Potential is potential. Anything can come from potential. And so we want to influence that instantiating potential to its most complete experience, right? We don't want to miss anything. This life is short, and this is it. This is where our sentient mind emerges from this apparatus that is the entire universe. How precious is it that we, on this earth, in this solar system, right? How many places have scientists been looking for anything like us? We're pretty unique. And we only exist for a brief period of time. So Shakyamuni's, Siddhartha's goal was, why suffer through it, right? There are things to suffer, but with our minds, we have the potential to see the amazement of this process of life constantly, right? We just have to alter our perception of things as real, self-creating things and see them as everything is just part of this process of life, constantly, moment to moment, instantiating anew. Nothing stays the same. That's the illusion of samsara, from which we start to stress out and have anxieties about how much we have, how much more we need, so on and so forth. That's how we create so much burden in our life experience. We don't have to do that. We can let that go and just be with the flow of everything as it's occurring. Living, being, right? Verb versus noun. So, let's see what Nichiren has to say about lessening one's karmic repercussions, right? The engine, as it moves through time, has consequences. Do we want to ameliorate those consequences? Lessening in this context would be lessening the perturbations that we stress about. So this is really a letter about karma, isn't it? There were two brothers named Chudapanthaka. When the name Chudapanthaka was called, either would answer. You three believers are like them. When any of you comes, I feel as though all three of you were here with me. So this is this was in 1272, only 3 weeks after he was nearly executed at Tatanakuchi. It was sent to three of his leading disciples, Ota Saimon, a government official, a lay priest, Soya Kyoshin, and the Dharma Bridge Kimbara. One of them may have visited Nichiren while he was being held in detention. Okay, so those are the three people he's addressing this letter to. The Nirvana Sutra teaches, Nichiren continues, the principle of lessening one's karmic repercussions. If one's heavy karma from the past is not expiated within this lifetime, one must undergo the sufferings of hell in the future. But if one experiences extreme hardship in this life, because of the Lotus Sutra, the sufferings of hell will vanish instantly. So what does all that mean? Because this is really confusing dialogue. And I question the translations on this, but let's just take it as read. From what we know and what we've studied together, what is this really saying, right? In the context of living moment to moment to moment to moment. Birth. These are lifetimes, these moments, in the context of these translations. So if you understand that, when he says one's heavy karma from the past, well, are we talking about the Big Bang? Or are we talking about yesterday? Right? Have you ever woke up in the morning, or sometimes in the middle of the night, and thought, man, I really screwed up today? What was I thinking? How did I let my emotions carry me to that act? You know when you act in a non-life affirming manner, when you act in a destructive manner. How many adjectives can you insert here? You know when your acts have not been your best self, right? You know. So this is what he's talking about. Now, if in that moment of realization, as he continues, you don't expiate this within this moment of realization, if you don't take care of that, redress it, apply your Buddha mind to it to fix it, then where are you? In the hell of incessant suffering. Welcome to samsara. It's not some other place where people with cattle prods are shocking you. Right? Stop it. We're talking about real life here, pragmatic life. Right? How many of us have made a mistake and then for however long we spend incessant moments in every day and it affects everything that we do, worrying about our screw up? That's what he's talking about. That's the hell. You can't function properly because, so fix it. But, if you screwed up and now you got to go to court over it, or now you got to, whatever, the consequences, the repercussions smack you hard. Well, then the universe is basically saying, you need to fix this, And we're not going to let you just sink this into your eighth consciousness, your karmic repository. We're going to take care of this crap right now. Well, that's a major benefit, isn't it? Not normally how we experience that. Well, oh, shit, I screwed up. Now I got to go to court, or now I got to pay debt, or blah, 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 blah. More suffering, right? Hell of its essence, suffering. So sometimes when you're not aware enough, when your Buddha mind isn't governing your thoughts and actions, you just wallow in the mess. You just keep making it worse, or, right? You're in the hell of incessant suffering. But sometimes you go, oh, maybe moments after you do it, you go back and you redress it, apologize. I'm such a fool. I was thinking this. Please let me make it up to you. Whatever, it's usually involves another person, right? Well, now you've expiated karma. But if you're not going to expiate it that way, the universe is perfectly well suited to pressing the matter. Same thing, though. It's much more nurturing to be conscious of it and take the actions on your own, though, rather than just suffering through a correction. This is why we practice Buddhism, to alleviate that problem. And this is what he's talking about. That's why he says, because of the Lotus Sutra. Because you practice, the universe will smack you back pretty quickly, instead of just latently sitting in your life in the mire, right? How many years can you carry a guilt? It's ridiculous. It's unnecessary. We do it to ourselves. And when one dies, one will obtain the rewards of the human and skies and spaceborne worlds, as well as those of the three vehicles and the one vehicle. Bodhisattva, never disparaging, was not abused and vilified, stoned and beaten with staves without reason. He had probably slandered the correct teachings in the past. The phrase, quote, when his offenses have been wiped out, end quote, indicates that because Bodhisattva, never disparaging, met persecutions, he was able to eradicate his offenses from previous life, right? That concludes my first point. So, he's being very specific in this letter, isn't he? How do we expiate our samsaric stupidity? And obviously, the universe seeks balance. The universe doesn't tolerate things that don't. It's a duality. The whole universe is duality. So how does duality be duality without balancing one, right? Yin, yang, however you want to look at it. Action, reaction, everything's in twos. So how can your actions not have a response, a repercussion, cause, effect? So what he's addressing about karma here specifically is that if you make a mistake, knowledgeable or not, there will be a correction. Do you want to be part of that correction? Do you want to address that correction immediately so that your life can stay on a positive track, on a positive judgment? Words, we want to feel the entirety of our life potential. But our life potential also has potential for some yuck. But we want to spend less time not only in the yuck, because we're going to make mistakes, but we want to expiate that as quickly as possible. We don't want to stay in it because that's the hell of insensate suffering. We would rather go recognize it, address it, fix it if possible, and get back on the happy foot, of life and its amazement. This is why the Bodhisattva life is so critical. because you cannot have your maximal potential in life without being connected, because you are, with your environment, with other people, with other sentient minds. And that interaction is like the rocks in the tumbler becoming jewels. You're going to have friction. Are you one to allow that to become scarring, or are you one to address that friction quickly and polish one another? It's just such a simple practice, really. But the words, sometimes, they get in the way a lot, really. All right, let's continue to his next point. The 25 teachers who transmitted the Buddhist teachings, with the exception of Shakyamuni Buddha, were all temporary manifestations of Buddhas or great Bodhisattvas whose advent had been predicted by Shakyamuni. Of these, the 14, Bodhisattva Aryadeva, of which we've already talked about in a previous video, was killed by a non-Buddhist, and the 25th, the Venerable Aryashima, was beheaded by King Damira. Right? Buddha Mitra and Bodhisattva Nagarjuna also suffered many persecutions. Yet others propagated Buddhism under the protection of devout kings, without encountering persecution. Yeah, what's up with that? Right? Some people have a really hard time propagating Buddhism, and other people seem to just skate. Right? This would seem to be because good countries and evil countries exist in the world, and shoju and shakubuku exist as ways of propagation. There's the capacity of the people, the time. There's a lot of factors. Where were you born? What, not just where geographically, but where in time, space, instantiations of the karmic surroundings, because you're not an island. Your island, as it were, was situated through your, quote, birth into samsara in a very suited, balanced place, time. Right? It's no accident that you're born into an affluent country or a poor country or a politically turmoiled country, so on and so forth. Your karma, your karmic engine, is suited to that environment. So you must rise to the occasion of your enlightenment within those confines, because your avenue of propagation is necessary to change that karma, to offer a better way. It's just the universe at work. A lot of Buddhists have trouble understanding that we're plopped right into our mission. It's not there. That's not an accident. It's a product of potential instantiating. Yeah? You can't make an ice cube in a block of wood. It only occurs in water. It's that straightforward, yeah? It was like this even during the former and middle days of the law, as it was in India, the center of Buddhism. This country is far away from India, and this is the beginning of the latter day of the law. I was certain beforehand that such things would happen. I have simply been waiting for the inevitable. This concludes my second point. That's a big point that I would venture to guess most Buddhists don't even think about. We're so arrogant. We think of ourselves as the center of the universe. No, we're a portion of it. We're an instantiation of it. But our particular samsaric qualities, identification, oh yeah, it's specific. And this is also why our mission is so much bigger than that self. Our self is actually a much larger component. Stop thinking small. I expounded this principle a long time ago, so it should not be new to you. One of the 6 stages of practice in the perfect teaching is the stage of perception and action. At this stage, one acts as one speaks and speaks as one acts. Now, that's a hard metric that I've been trying since a very young age to check myself and behave for dignity, to say as I do and do as I say. The more you use that metric in your life, just as he was saying, one acts as one speaks and one speaks as one acts, you're going to confront your mind. And you're going to be having doubts about, I thought I was acting as I was speaking, but when I was speaking, did I really mean what I ended up doing, acting? Or was my act a justification of the words I said, or vice versa? Yeah, it gets complicated, doesn't it? That's introspection. That's all the more reason to chant, so that our introspection is correctly viewed, correctly understood. Correctly. By correctly, I mean clearly, not admired in the politic of our own self-perception, because that's where it begins, right? Those at the stage of being a Buddha in theory only, and at the stage of hearing the name and words of the truth, have confidence in the perfect teaching. But even though they praise it, their actions fail to reflect their words. That's a tough one. You may see yourself as an avid practitioner of Nichiren's doctrine, of the Lotus Sutra, and yet, not long after you walk away from your Butsudan, you find yourself behaving in a very samsaric and lesser manner. Why is that? How is that? For example, countless people study the non-Buddhist known as the 3 records and the 5 canons, right? But not even one case in 10 million is found where a person governs society and behaves as the text teach, right? They all consider themselves superior because they know the texts, but they behave horribly, right? If you follow all these great texts of history, even non-Buddhist texts, you find that everything goes toward fascism or authoritarianism or totalitarian, ego, everywhere. None of those texts promote that as a solution. And yet, how can that be, right? Thus, it is very difficult to establish peace in society. One may be letter perfect in reciting the Lotus Sutra. Your Gongyo, excellent, right? But it is far more difficult to act as it teaches. The simile and parable chapter states, quote, if this person, on seeing those who read, recite, copy, and uphold the sutra, should despise, hate, envy, or bear grudges against them. The teacher of the law chapter reads, since hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound even when the thus come one is in the world, how much more will this be so after his passing? The encouraging devotion chapter reads, many ignorant people will attack us, swords and staves, again and again will be banished. The peaceful practices chapter states, quote, it, the Lotus Sutra, will face much hostility in the world and be difficult to adhere to believe. Although these quotations from the sutra are Shakyamuni Buddha's prophecies, There is no reference to when these persecutions will occur, no dates, right? In the past, Bodhisattva, never disparaging in the monk realization of virtue, read and lived these passages. But setting aside the 2,000 years of the former and middle days of the law, now, in the latter day, in all of Japan, only Nichiren seems to be doing so. From the present situation, I can well imagine how followers, relatives, disciples, lay supporters must have grieved in the past when, during the reigns of evil kings, so many of their sage monks met persecution. Nichiren has now read and lived the entirety of the Lotus Sutra. Even a single phrase or verse assures one's enlightenment, right? We've read those quotations before. Since I have read the entire sutra, how much more certain is my enlightenment? Right? We're doing this every day. We're filling our bank of positive influence on karma, yeah? But the hard part is the actions, right? How do we put it into our daily life? How do we act it out? Not just know it in our minds. That's great. But use it as the foundation of all of our actions, thoughts, words, deeds. Because that's the karma we're manifesting as an influence on our engine of life. I am more confident than ever, Nichiren says. Though I may sound presumptuous, my most fervent desire is to realize the security and peace of the entire land. This isn't about me anymore. It's about my ability to influence my environment. That's everything. That is the greater me. The greater self is the influence on the environment that supports, manifests the self, the version of life that is inclusive of everything, yeah? In an age when none will heed me, however, it is beyond my power. I can't just snap my fingers and have it happen, yeah? I will close now to keep this brief. Nichiren, the 5th day of the 10th month and the 8th year. So, a short letter, a meaty one. Obviously, he wasn't talking to just run-of-the-mill people. He was talking to some specific folks who were well-read, right? But because he's talking to somebody in government, as well as these others, accomplished people, it's really a letter of encouragement, but with a caution, with 3 cautions, right? To be aware of the nature of your life, not as you alone are experiencing it, but always viewing our lives in the context of our environment. Once again, in Buddhism, fundamentally, there is no separation between you and your environment. There's a huge aspect of personal responsibility that grows in us as we more and more realize that every action we take has an implication to everything we experience, to affecting, because our environment is a reflection of what we do, right? A boat doesn't go through the water without creating ripples, waves. The floating of the boat is itself an interrelationship with the water on which it sits. It's not independent. It's a weak analogy, but you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, Nichiren making a very strong point here to some of his educated, you would say, or aware of his teachings, disciples, followers, students. He's saying, don't get myopic. Don't get so focused on learning the words and the rhymes and the da-da-da-da-da. What does it mean? How do you implement? When you chant and you recite Gangyo, understand that you are bolstering your mind of experience of the totality of your life, not just your 2 feet to the tip of your head, but how that body of yours and your mouth and your mind navigate through everything. How do you represent your Buddha nature for your environment to experience, right? Don't ask what others think of you. Ask what others think of your Buddha-ness or Buddha in general without having to utter a single word of Buddhism, right? Your acts, your causes. How do you reflect your enlightened self in samsara for others to observe for themselves? Not an easy task even to consider. But we have the facility to do this all the time. We just don't relate it to Buddha-ness. We relate it to ego, right? To politic, to am I loved or unloved? Rather, am I creating love for enlightenment, for a state of being? Am I taking my responsibility to put that out there, or am I making this all about me? That's a tough question, isn't it? Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Thank you for being on this journey. Little by little, we're affecting our environment. We are changing the world, our world certainly. And by multiplication, right? This is what Buddhism wants to accomplish. And self-realization for the enlightenment of all. That's the stated mission Siddhartha had in so many words. So thank you. Thank you again. In that regard, you gotta take care of your health, right? Or you can't do this. Or you're severely limited. Let me put it that way. So, congratulations. Stay strong. Take care of your health. And be kind to yourself and others, right? I know you can do it. Thank you again for being here. Use the resources. A lot of free resources here, as well as opportunities to support this Sangha, this channel, this resource. So thank you for that. Thank you, patrons. To all of you who've bought ebooks and print books, so on and so forth. You guys are amazing. All right? Bye for now.